This video was solely made for the purpose of entertaining your curiosity, and it was not my intention to change or even challenge anyone's views. The educational system doesn't make sense because it was created to stimulate compliance and obedience, while stifling creativity and independent thinking. Basically, it was meant to turn us into modern-day slaves, which I simply define as people who are forced to do things in a certain way just to fit into society. And this is how it works. We are born into this world with absolutely no knowledge, a tabula rasa. One by one, different skills are taught to us by our parents voluntarily or involuntarily. Skills such as how to walk, how to talk, how to behave in society, how to communicate, and so on. Using those skills, we begin to explore and expand our universe bit by bit. We start from our homes, then our yards, then the streets, then a playground, and eventually other public places. In doing so, we gather knowledge about how the world around us works and what everything is all about. Then, all of a sudden, one day, our universe expands and we find ourselves in a new place called school. A place where we are sent against our will, and this should be red flag number one. Just ask yourself this: if we truly aren't slaves, how come we have no say in whether we go to school or not? The answer is that children aren't supposed to make life-impacting decisions, which I agree with. But then, why are our parents required to send us to school? So it's not that our parents are forcing us to go to school, it's that someone is forcing our parents to force us to go to school. And this should be red flag number two. Now, we've been in the educational system for a while, but we don't remember when or how it began. All we know is that 5 days a week we have to get up in the morning and go to school, and no one tells us why. Very early in this journey, we are taught that high grades are good and good grades are bad, and those with good grades will be successful later in life, and those with bad grades won't. Slowly but steadily, getting bad grades becomes stigmatized, to the point where children become afraid of making mistakes, asking questions, or even challenging what they are being taught. Teachers are portrayed as selfless adults who have life figured out, and are eager to help students find their purpose, when in reality they're ordinary people manipulated by the system into believing they're educating the younger generation for the betterment of society, which in practice means the indoctrination of young minds with the belief that life doesn't exist outside the system, and that if they choose to obey it, their safety is assured for as long as their loyalty lasts. Schools don't prepare us for life, they prepare us for work, and they do so by rewarding obedience and punishing disobedience. They teach obedience by making us memorize irrelevant information. Then they test our knowledge, praise those who perform well, and criticize those who don't. We are taught the geography of countries most of us will never visit, but we aren't taught how to recognize an abuser when making friends or choosing a partner. We're forced to solve endless mathematical equations, but it is never explained to us how inflation, debt, interest rates, and credit scores work. We have pointless chemistry formulas shoved down our throats, but we aren't shown how to regulate our emotions. We're taught ancient history, but not how to build a house. We're shown the anatomy of the human body in great detail, but we are rarely taught about nutrition, or how to maintain a healthy lifestyle. We are taught the most obscure laws of physics, but no one ever teaches us the laws of the countries we live in. Schools also instill obedience by enforcing a strict schedule. They control when we arrive, when we study, when we take breaks, when we eat, and when we leave. And we are expected to follow it without question. If we don't, we're threatened with bad grades. And we have already established that bad grades lead to a lower quality of life. This only reminds me of the modern workplace. A place where people often follow rules they may not agree with because they fear losing their livelihoods. All in all, our parents pay for us, so we spend our childhoods and teenage years studying in order to make it in life. And before we know it, we're adults with no basic survival skills, which means that we will struggle to function independently should the system collapse. As a result, we end up paying someone else to teach us those skills, which is completely nonsensical. Another issue that I have with the educational system is that instead of being treated as individuals with different needs, we're treated as statistics. Someone once said that if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its entire life believing it is stupid. And that is the educational system in a nutshell. We are all fed the same information and expected to process it at the same rate. We are all given the same tests and expected to produce the same results. We are all given equal opportunities and expected to achieve the same outcomes. We are presented with a standard and we are deemed failures when we don't measure up. Schools do not tailor to our specific needs. They tailor to the needs of the system that created them. From the very moment they have a grip on us, they flood our minds with obedience and drain them of critical thinking. They shape us into the tools the system requires, where we're each highly educated but lack practical skills. And we're forced to work for money so we can pay others to do basic things for us. The bottom line is that after more than a decade of studying and accumulating knowledge, we are encouraged to celebrate our brainwashing by attending a graduation ceremony. a ceremony that romanticizes the end of a chapter of our lives, in which the most obedient receive the highest praise. Then adulthood begins and some of us don't even know how to get a job. The jobs available are often low paying anyway, and insufficient to support a peaceful and comfortable life. So we're told that if we want higher paying jobs, we need a degree that we can only get by going into debt, a degree that is considered less valuable than practical experience anyway. Because why spend our compulsory school years developing skills that directly apply to life when we can spend that time learning countless things that have no practical use? So yeah, schools were not created to teach us any valuable life skills. They were created to teach us obedience. And that is why I believe the educational system doesn't make sense.